What you're saying about immigration, I think it is true, because there's no question that rich people look down at poor people, and when we're fighting against each other, they're just laughing their asses off, because it's like brilliant. Rather than paying attention to us, they're just, you know, fighting with poor immigrants, and it keeps us divided, and they love that. You know, I've got no doubts about that. But nonetheless, whenever issues and concerns about immigration are raised, it's the fact that the left shut people down. You're a racist. If you raise concerns about Islam, they shut you down, and you're an Islamophobe. Now, I know that, yeah, there are people on the far right who raise concerns about immigration, and there are people who are on the far right who raise concerns about Islam, and they're raising them because they've got dodgy political views. But there's loads of working class people who are raising those concerns legitimately. But one of the examples I gave in this discussion was, if there was a big flood in North Braunston, which is a big sprawling council estate in Leicester, if there was a big flood and they all had to be evacuated as an emergency, so they got them all off and they said, right, we're going to have to bang them into the Queen's Road. It's like this Clarendon Park, it's this nice middle class area. We're just moving them all there. I mean, how do you think they'd respond? I don't know how they'd respond, because they're predominantly white, working class people, and they'd despise them. They wouldn't want them there. They'd think, we're going to have all these people who are with their houseboat problems and their drug problems and their crime. They wouldn't want them there, you know? And so what's the difference between that situation and working class people thinking, you know, it causes problems? And it's exactly the same. But just because they're immigrants, and immigration is a cause celeb issue for the bleeding heart liberals, shut down those concerns, dirty, horrible working class people, you're a racist. Bring them over, open borders, flood it in, and that's what it sounds like they're saying. Just as many, you just bring them in, ignore any concerns as racism, and it just seems to be ridiculous. And that's what I think, that's one of the main reasons I think that the left are losing respect with working class people, is because they don't speak their language and they don't understand the concerns that they've got. If you look at identity politics and social justice warriors, it's crazy, it's out of control. And it's big in America, but it's over here as well. Just some people I know locally were going to boycott Tesco's because they're selling gendered clothing, like boys and girls clothing. I mean, what on earth planet are we living on where that, for an activist, is a key concern?
Get the fuck out of here.
I think, like, with something like that, it's maybe putting the cart before the horse a bit. I think if you went to working class women and asked them what their primary concerns were, it would be wages, it would be job security, it would be, like, particularly with winter and Christmas coming up, are they going to be able to give their kids hot meals every day and keep the heating on? You know, that's becoming a real problem at the moment, people having to choose between heating and eating. And I think it's focusing on those bread and butter issues, because that doesn't just affect women. There are men, there are, like, you know, gay people and black people and Muslim people who are all having to make those same choices about whether they can afford to buy nutritional food, have a hot dinner every day, and keep the heating on. And so, you know, again, I think it's about finding the common ground, which is why, you know, the feminists, the people that you're referencing, and the left isn't a homogenous block. It's not all kind of like one mass that sort of has the same view. It's a lot of different groups, different people who have different attitudes, and maybe some attitudes are less helpful than others in actually taking the sort of like concerns of working class people seriously. But at the same time, the real like force in change in a left-wing sense are the working class as a whole. So if you want to talk about the left and how can the left change things, it's about working class people coming together and changing things. And until those sort of mass movements develop, until the trade unions kind of really wake up and take a lead in organising people.
My mum used to tell me of the scenes in the 20s and the 30s of young mothers who had sick babies and sick children, begging on the streets to get a few pennies in order to pay to go and see the doctors. It was our parents and our grandparents who, having defeated the evils of fascism at the end of the Second World War, came back determined to build a land fit for heroes. They gave us the welfare state. They gave us the National Health Service. And it's ours, and we need to fight to hold on to it.
And so people will get the confidence to come out and campaign and be part of movements and be part of organisations as they see more and more people start to do that. And I think initially a lot of those campaigns, people come forward not because they have huge amounts of confidence to do things about it, but because they have an absolute need to do something about it. So for example, you with the rehabilitation centre, but also with the Glenfield Childrens Heart Unit at the moment, the women primarily that are involved in that campaign are doing it because their children use that service. You know, they've spent their lives kind of like trying to, you know, raise money to keep the heart unit going, and they desperately see the need to keep that service alive. But you know, through them doing that work and getting a campaign going, you know, we had 2,000 people on a demo last year. People can get drawn in, and then when they see the people around them also willing to participate, they do start to get confidence, and you get a bit of a snowball effect. And we don't need that just on a scale of 2,000 people, we need that on the scale of millions of people in sort of similar ways you're seeing in Spain with that movement that's sort of like developing for independence. But in reality, that independence movement is about the austerity attacks that are being made by the Spanish government. And it's people attempting to resist that and fight to run society for themselves that is coming through in this independence movement. And you know what? People over here will be inspired by movements and things that happen across the world. So it's not always just a case of thinking, well, there's nothing happening in this country, because things will happen all over the world that will inspire people that they can fight back and they can be part of something bigger. So I think we don't necessarily have to be dismayed by videos we see online of people saying ridiculous things, and people do have ridiculous behaviour that really does nothing to build movements, does nothing to unify people, and does everything to carve lines between me, my problem and your problem, when in reality our problems are different, but they all stem from the same system that oppresses us, and the only way to solve our individual problems is to work together to overthrow the system. And maybe then you would see genderless clothing, but starting out by fighting for genderless clothing now is maybe not the best tack, I would say.